How are you?
Hello.
You okay?
Good. Yeah.
Oh, bless you. How have you been? Nice to see you.
Yes, I feel like it's been a little while since you've
Yeah,
been.
well, it has for me because I've been out of the loop, but I've been trying to not be like it's really good for Lizzie to kind of try and lead them wholly on her own. And I think that it was quite hard for me not to come, but I think I'm so excited to be back though, especially with this stuff because this is my favorite topic.
Yeah, this is a tough week.
It's a tough topic though, and I will say that to everyone because it's one thing doing this this work in the closet, right? Like in your room, protected, but being this in the world, like that's different. And that's why we do this as a group. That's why we do this as a group. And I will say that time and time again because it's easy to do this in isolation, but actually seeing each other do this work as a collective is what will give you that power. And that's why a lot of people get stuck here and then don't move forward often.
Yeah, I can see that happening.
We'll go into that, a bit more, and I think that's why this is why it is a tough week. So do accept that this isn't light. Like this is going to be hard, and just allow yourself just to feel that and not kind of, do you know what I mean, have any kind of expectation that it shouldn't be. Welcome, Sam.
Hello, you all right?
Yeah, you well? Nice to see you.
I know you too. It's good to be back.
Let's quickly
I haven't seen your face in a while as well.
I know.
Right.
How are you doing?
Good.
Yeah. Are you
Tough
feeling
week.
better? Because I know you were a wee bit poorly the last call I was on.
I was. Yeah, it stuck around for quite a while actually. It just like chest, it just wouldn't go. But yeah, feeling better.
Good.
Yeah.
Right, I'm just messaging Donna back. She can only get to kind of half the session, so I'm saying completely up to you. We'd love to have you, but also I can just do a one-to-one if that's better for her because it's people are, I'm sensing that everyone's just a bit like woo at the moment. Sam, how did you get on with the work this week? I was just saying to Lauren how this is really different, like to the stuff we've done so far, and we've been talking to Lauren a little bit around it feels suddenly a bit more like big, and it is because up to this point we've been looking at internal resources, right? And it was one thing doing a personal development program or doing all this learning like in your room yourself, but being that person in your life, like that's different, right? Like putting a boundary in place with a friend, or saying to someone, you're not helping me with the version, or not, you're not supporting me with who I'm becoming. That's different, and that's why we do this in a group, because you can sense a lot of people will get to this point and be like, oh no, that's too big, and that's why we do this together, because actually this bit really needs community, because it can lead to a feeling of isolation. That isolation period, and Sam, I'm sure you felt it too, and I'm in that at the moment. I'm so isolated, but I know the old version of me doesn't exist anymore, right? So it's that being seen in a positive light, even though that's such a hard part of this journey, so it's the rocky bit, we're right in the rocky bit.
No, it has been really interesting, and what I've found a bit like something questioning is I actually feel like I've got a lot of good friends around me that support me in different avenues, but I think a lot of the time it's me that gets in my own way.
That's interesting.
More than like I do have people there that I could go to for like to ask for advice, to ask for guidance, or to bring in some joy and fun, or I have friends that I can be really deep with and like really share deep like sharing. But what I've noticed is sometimes it's more me, like I can hold myself back. There's a little bit of resistance there, and it's something I've been going into weirdly with my grief therapist around commitment with like different areas of my life, and because I've moved around a lot, and like I've noticed it in different areas where there's a commitment thing, like I'll do something for so long and then I kind of feel like scared of really committing to deeper. So yeah, because I wrote down a list of people that I could easily go to, but sometimes I there's
Yeah,
a barrier that I put up for myself to welcome that in.
that's
Maybe
so
there's a fear of like giving myself the support and receiving it.
that's
Or
an
something.
imposter syndrome face. Kate is the soloist. So that's a really common one. So that's probably what you're doing there. You're kind of putting one thing is like reaching out, but they're not receiving it. So there's some work around being kind of maybe feeling, I don't know, maybe it's a willingness to receive or feeling like you're good enough to receive. Because sometimes if we feel like we don't feel deserving of that support, we can block it subconsciously. So there's something there around, I deserve this support from others. Because but that's such an interesting, piece to this, isn't it? It's not always just about the people. It's about how we're showing up and relying on those people and letting that support in as well. There's so many elements, but that's great self-reflection, isn't it?
Definitely. So
yeah. Right, let me just Rona's saying, sorry Gush, final question on assignment, is there a session next week or is there a break between modules? No, we're carrying on through. Let me just message her back. And then Donna just checking if she's going to join us. 1-1 might be better, struggling for time. Okay, no problem. So I think this might be it then. So we've got a small group today. Welcome, Carol. How are you doing? Did you have a lovely break?
I did, thank you. Yes,
Are
nice
you
to get
well
some sunshine.
rested? And was it a love? Did you manage to switch off? I know you were messaging saying I'm struggling to switch off.
The first 2 days I was so lost, like I don't know what to do. And then I'm on holiday, you're not supposed to do anything, you don't have to. And then I did get, like you have your breakfast, you sort of chill for a bit, you go down to the beach or you go for a walk. And yeah, I did manage to get there.
Good. Yeah, it takes a little while, doesn't it? That's why I think you always need a little bit longer than a week, because almost you kind of.
Yeah, 10 days was quite nice for that reason.
Good. And you said you were watching, sorry, not watching, you were reading Untamed, weren't you? But you said that was a bit heavy. It is a bit heavy, Untamed.
Well, it's just there's so much content in it that I had to process the content before I could move on.
Yeah,
Read some more.
It's a lot. Yeah, I think it's taking your time with stuff like that as well. Like, it's not trying to you don't have to kind of read a book like that in a week. You could take over it if that suits you.
Well, I read an easy novel as well while I was away.
Mixing them up, because she's honestly, Glennon Doyle, like she's probably my favorite human in the world. Like,
right.
Her podcast is amazing, but she's intense. Like, she is so intense.
I found her podcast today. I've added it to my list. I haven't listened to anything yet.
She's incredible, but you're not always in the right mood for that, because sometimes you just want to rest, and she's like, you're like activism, and there's so much there. Okay, yeah. We're gonna get going. So I was just saying to a few of the others that joined, this is really different. So we're kind of turning a bit of a corner now. We have done a lot of internal work, internal self-reflection, and we're looking outward now. We're peeking kind of our head above the parapet a little bit, and we're starting to look around us a bit, because a big part of the journey within isn't just going on our inner journey. It's about being that version of us that we authentically are in the world, and that affects our relationships with others. That affects the things we choose to do in our time, the work that we do. And this is where we start to bridge the gap. Life purpose the next month is very much about action in the world. It's about how am I being me in the world around me through life purpose. But this is the bridge. This is where we get kind of from one to the other. So it can be a bit rocky here, because it's a bit like, oh, now I've got to do that, be that version, of me in the world. And it's different. How are people going to react? There's a lot that comes from this place, because it can feel a bit uncomfortable. But we're doing this together, and that's why we do it as a group. Because actually you guys are showing up, for each other in this space. And I will say as well, in the last cohort, I actually broke up with my partner through this through this program as a result of the work that I was doing, because I'm doing it time and time again as well. So I'm constantly doing this work, revisiting it, looking at it differently. So sometimes you can just hear something in a different way, or not be always ready to kind of act out every element of it, because it takes a lot of bravery and consistency. So know that we're all doing this work all the time, including me as well. So it's never done. It's kind of an ongoing process. you know, and a big part of that, and I won't talk loads about it, but just because when I did this work, I just felt like that relationship wasn't, that person wasn't kind of my cheerleader in every sense of the word. And I just was thinking, you know, that person for me should be the person that is pushing me on, you know, and the person that I'm excited to tell these things to, you know, and that was really, really hard. And I wouldn't have been able to do that probably, until that point. So sometimes it's not always being in the action, it's just kind of working through the bits that we're ready to work through at the time, is all I'd say. My favorite quote with this work is, "You're the sum of the closest 5 people to you in your life." So that's a Jim Rohn quote for anyone that knows you. But basically, you are made up of the people around you, your beliefs, your actions, your behaviors. So if you think about the closest 5 people to you in your life, they infiltrate you and they, you know, have such an impact on who you are in the world. So like who we choose to spend our time with is such an important part of this journey. Because we take on those beliefs, those actions, you know, of others, and actually we can choose who those people are. You know, we can say no to some of those relationships if they're not serving us, even though it's really uncomfortable. I'll also say one more thing, and it's one of my favorite quotes, which is, "People are in our life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime." And I really, really like that one, because it kind of makes you just reflect on some relationships in a different way, and it helps you let go of them if you've outgrown them for any reason. You know, especially when it comes to the season, you know, if you've outgrown that version of yourself, then actually that relationship might naturally fall away. There's an element of us trying to hold on to things that feel safe, but you know, we're always growing and evolving, you know, and if that version doesn't exist of you anymore, maybe that relationship doesn't exist either. Any thoughts and reflections on that before I just talk all day long, because I can on this subject? Anything that came up from the work so far, Carol?
Yes, must be nearly 2 years ago. A friend messaged me to say she didn't want to see me anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And she didn't give a valid reason, apart from how far away she lived, which she's always lived a long way away.
Mm-hmm.
And I have no idea why she did that and why that was right for her. And to be on the receiving end of that, it's still, I would like just to like to know why. And I would also like to know if she's okay. So I don't know how to deal with it the other way around.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point, isn't it? Really interesting to kind of think about how that can be quite triggering, you know, receiving that news. But maybe you having that knowledge now, you might kind of have a deeper understanding of maybe
it's made me think
reasons
more.
why. But hopefully you'd like to think that someone would give you a bit of a reason, you know, if say, you know, you've got a friend that you've outgrown that doesn't align with your values anymore, you can use those values as a tool to support that conversation in a nice way. So I think that we don't always just have to kind of put the wall up and run, you know, we can explain and maybe work through that, right? Like a relationship might move through that and get stronger because someone has honored your values and actually can grow with you, you know. But if we don't give that person the chance, you know.
I mean, if it is the end for her, then fine, I'll accept that. But it's just having a final conversation.
You know, like it would be really interesting to know why, you know.
Well, she said don't contact her.
Okay, that's strange.
To leave it with her.
Or just trust that wasn't meant for you, you know, and that there'll be other people. I also say as well, if we're holding on to relationships that aren't meant for us, we're often blocking the relationships that are. So actually by holding on to a friendship that maybe doesn't feel right, or kind of, you know, you're just kind of being that people pleaser, then maybe what if kind of we're blocking what's actually meant for us? And I always say with this, if there's no one, there was a few people from the last course that had no one on their crew, none of their seats taken on our kind of crew seat. And I said, that's an amazing opportunity. You know, isn't that an amazing opportunity? The fact that we can get so clear about what we want in a friendship and then go out and find them, you know, and go out and manifest that into our life, you know, get really clear about, you know, what kind of qualities do they have? What hobbies do they have? You know, what does it feel like to be around them? Because actually that then comes back to manifestation of like manifesting those people into our lives. So I think sometimes we can be holding on to things that aren't right for us. And actually then we're blocking the things that
Yeah.
and you know, that period of isolation, of losing the old stuff and then kind of coming into the new, I'm in that at the moment. Like a lot of my old friendships have fallen away, and it's really, really hard. It's probably the hardest bit that I've done in this journey, but I just know without that you're actually not really upgrading, are you? Because
You're not you. Yeah.
so it's a tricky bit that doesn't happen overnight, is what I'd say, because I'm very much still
Yeah.
in
I
that.
hadn't thought about her for a while. It's only just now that you made me think about her again.
Yeah, and it's sometimes nice just to have a different perspective on that, that's all.
Yep,
Any
thank
other
you.
thoughts, Sam and Lauren, from you guys? And then we'll go and do a little bit in breakouts around you introducing just a bit, you know, of those roles that you came up with from doing the homework, because it's nice to sometimes talk this through with others.
Yeah, I was just going to echo a bit what you were saying there around like those people in your life that are slipping away, or then you bring in new people, and it's like, I sometimes think of it in when you're doing personal development and like your energy shifting and your vibration is possibly getting higher, and then suddenly you're around people where it's something's changed, something's shifted, and it doesn't feel the same as it used to. And it's like just what you were saying, like it's just kind of like it can feel really hard though letting that go, but when it gets to the point where there's just that you're not gelling the way that you used to, then it becomes a bit more hard to kind of be in flow with each other. But then, like you say, by letting that go, you're creating space to bring in more people that are where you're at now, and people that will cheer you on, and people that support you where you're at and aren't trying to hold you back. They're actually like, let's move forward together.
And often a big learning of that is realizing it's not about you. So often you going on your personal development journey is showing up massive triggers for them in terms of their projecting so much fear, because they're thinking, hang on a minute, do I need to do that? Is that something I do? So hang on a minute. So they're analyzing everything about themselves, which then is putting them in such a fear place, but that's not yours. And I think that's the bit that can be hard to manage, is almost like it brings up this fear that then puts you in this funny place where, you know, and I think that's where space is kind of the healer, because actually you'll either grow through that, or actually that person will choose to stay stuck and choose to stay where they're at, or they'll choose to evolve, you know, and grow with you, really.
Yeah. And there was something I heard at the weekend as well around, say you've got friends that you've known for like 20 years, and if they haven't changed, they're just the same, and then you keep evolving, but they just remember you, who you were 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So they're just like, that's not you. Who's this person? And it's like you say, it's a trigger as well. They're like, no, I don't know that person. I know you 20 years ago. And then it becomes a really difficult way to be with that person.
The
and
option is you going back to who they want you to be in that moment, be in that friendship, but that version doesn't exist. I have the same thing with a big group of uni friends. So 10 years, we've known each other 10, 12 years. And we go to Centre Parks every year. And every time I go on this trip, I turn into the old person for me. And I have a horrible weekend because I got bullied a lot at university and I was an anxious mess. And I don't know who else to be, because they don't know who I've become. And I've like grappled with that. But I don't know, if I don't think I can keep on doing that, right? Because that's the cost. It's like, what's the cost to you putting yourself in that situation? But I feel like for me at the moment, like I'm coming out of that, in that feels normal that you'd feel like the odd one out. But I think once you then sit back, you then meet people that have always felt that way too. But actually, if you don't ever pull yourself out of it, you're always the one that feels different. Does that make sense? I feel like that's where I'm at. I was always that person that was like, I feel different to everyone. And now I'm realizing I've got to pull myself away from it to kind of meet people that actually feel the same.
That goes back to the Untamed book. Who were you before the world told you who to be?
That's my favorite quote, you know, and that's like I've stolen it.
She's nailed it.
Nailed it, exactly. So, you know, and I think it's just understanding all of that. There's so much playing out here, and actually it's very triggering for the people around us, for us to grow, you know, and some people want you to, some people's identity is based on who you are or who you were, right? So actually there's a bit of confusion that comes from, if you're this person, I don't know who I am in that relationship.
Well, it's kind of, there's a Jay Shetty quote that was like, we are who other people think we are.
Yes.
but we aren't that person.
No, it's so
So
interesting, isn't it? It's fascinating. It's fascinating.
they will see you as a person who you never were in the beginning, in the first place anyway, because
Yeah.
so, and Carol, with that friend, like, as I have had that situation happen to me before, and you just have to let them go with kindness and love, and trust that that's their journey, and that if that's what they need, and we are all mirrors for one another, so anything they're feeling, they're just reflecting it back off onto themselves. It's really got nothing to do with you.
Thank you
so
for that, Lauren.
Yeah, send them with love and kindness, and just
wish them the best.
That's it. Yeah.
And maybe they'll come, maybe they'll come back, lifetime, reason, season, lifetime, that sometimes we have friendships that come in waves as well, so it's really interesting. And I think one thing to do with that crew piece we've done is look at labeling it with like reason, season, lifetime from the crew. Because you'll probably start to realize, oh, that's so interesting, I met that person at that point in my life, because then you realize actually how things are playing out. And I had my best friend in Canada, Eden. She moved in next door to me when I was in a emotionally abusive relationship, and she got me into this spiritual world. And without her applying me with books like, read this, I was like, Eden, I literally feel like I can't. But that was my start of this beginning, and that was not a coincidence, and she's now like, she's massive influence in my life. But like that for me was a big crossroads moment, because without that, that person, she's Canadian, very, very different to anyone in the UK in terms of her mindset and anything. Like she honestly was just, for me, it was like, whoa, like who is this person? Very extreme. But you couldn't have planned that or planted that, in Didcot, in a place like Didcot, small town in Didcot, really? So it just makes you think, like goosebumps. So it makes you just realize, wow, that was a real moment for me, so it's really interesting. And I think what I would say from this work is go thank those people as well that were those people and are those people for you, because we don't often say it enough, do we? Thank you for being in my front row, like thanks for, and I think that's really nice to always do with this, celebrate those people that are there supporting us, as well as kind of like realizing maybe the ones that we've outgrown as well. Okay, let's go into some paired conversations and just talk a bit about how the roles worked out for you. You don't have to use these words if they don't resonate, but I like the analogy of water. So feel free to create roles here or remove them, but maybe just introduce one of those relationships to the other person, and work that through a bit, because you might realize after a conversation today, actually that person isn't quite that role. And maybe if there isn't anyone that you're able to place in those roles, talk a bit about what you'd be looking for from kind of someone that would be, and we call this like your soul family, your tribe. Like, I love the soul family piece, because it's about just feeling that kind of deeper connection with someone. Okay, let's see. Well, we're just going to be in two groups. So let's see, I'll let the breakout rooms do the magic today. Okay, let's give you kind of a few minutes, but yeah, feel free to cover as many as you like. Off you go. So you're with me, Carol.
Hello.
How did you get on with this?
I didn't get very far, actually. I thought I'd have way more time.
We can work through it together. Who would you say,
okay,
not looking at the roles, but talk to me a bit about a few of those people you would say are in your front row?
Husband Andy, my sister Linda, my couple of best friends Alice and Dawn, another friend Ruth, Ted. And at work, I've got my colleague Simon and my boss Paul. I think they're both on my side in my crew.
Awesome. That's so good. You've got loads of people. And is there anyone through this journey so far that you think, oh, maybe they're not on my crew? Maybe kind of you realize people don't necessarily support you. Is there anyone like that?
No, I've not had that feeling. No.
That's good. You're already doing it.
I think I've done it, over the last year, 18 months, there's been one person who I've realized that he always comes to me when he's got a problem.
Mm.
And yet when I want to talk, he doesn't support me in the same way. So I have distanced myself. I mean, I'm not available, but I don't make myself as available.
Yeah. And it's, I think it's just putting a bit of boundaries in place with that. And do you feel like, this is where the work comes in, but do you feel like you go to those different people in your life for different things? Is there, for example, someone that always makes you laugh? Is there someone you go to have a problem? You know?
Do you know, we were talking the other day about comedy and laughter, and you know, it's on TV really. Like, there's not much on TV that makes me laugh.
No, we have lacking joy, aren't we?
I mean, I like Miranda, and that's about it.
Yeah, we need more joy in our life for sure. I feel like sometimes, especially through what we've been through COVID, like the lightheartedness is missing.
There is another couple. We had an evening with them a little while ago, and we had dinner and played Scrabble, and we did laugh, and we said the next day, like, we laughed, and it's been so long since we've just laughed.
Lovely.
It is a nice feeling.
It feels so simple, doesn't it? So it feels like this is something, and I guess this does come with life experience as well. You probably, looking back maybe to you in your 20s, your version of you in your 20s, do you feel like you had this sussed in the same way? Do you think with time it kind of got easier?
In my 20s, I was working like 35, 40 miles away from home. So I didn't socialize with people at work because I always went home. I didn't have much money, so I didn't go out much. So no, I wouldn't say I really had a crew in those days.
Yeah, so it's taken time to build.
And
and has everyone
probably didn't even consider it.
Everyone being quite supportive of you doing this journey within? Is there anyone that you feel like have been like negative or like, oh, why are you doing that? Because that's quite an interesting thing, isn't it? When we go and do something like this, it often people even support or say, oh, why are you doing that? That's a waste of time, you know.
Well, I feel people who question you like that are more like, oh, why is she doing that? And I'm not, should I be doing it? Or,
it's more about
it's normally about them rather than me. No, I mean, I'm not told loads of people, but those I have told, it's been fine. And I put in.
And is there anything you want more of? Like, often with this work, I often say we often are attracted to people that are quite different from us. So I'm quite like high energy, and I'm really attracted to people that are so calm, you know, and collected, because I am not. So it's really,
I saw a picture of you with a red fedora hat. No, not fedora hat, a red hat on. Right, that looked fantastic. You look really good.
Thank you. Yeah, it's one of those, isn't it, where sometimes you this is a way of craving parts of ourselves that we don't have, and naturally you kind of complement yourself through others. So again,
well, I used to wear hats. It reminded me, I used to have a black hat like that and a red beret, and I think I stopped wearing them because it made me stand out. And now I don't know why. Now at that time I didn't want that. So maybe I should get a hat.
Well, like, that's a really good action for you. You have to send me a picture of it. It's so funny how, like, one hat, I honestly think I said this in the picture, I was like, how one hat can give you so much joy. And for me it was because it was a real connection to lightheartedness and joy, and like and the differences, because actually wearing something like that, like a bright hat, makes people like oh, you know,
I do notice you. Yeah,
for me it's always been, oh, you're too much, you're kind of quieten down, you know. And for me that was a big part of connecting back with the brightness and the quirkiness. So it's funny how clothes and colors can do that.
Yeah, I think I've always been quite shy, but sort of a middle ground, I think. Not completely introverted and not extroverted. I know that doesn't mean you are shy or not shy, but it's the being noticed bit. I didn't used to be that comfortable with it, and now I don't mind.
Yeah,
get a hat. That's my task.
There you go. Yellow, is it going to be yellow?
Oh no, I don't know. I did have a red beret.
I have to find it. I have to find the red beret.
Yeah, I doubt I've got it anymore, but yeah.
And how does this feel compared to the other work we've done? Because I know this is quite different in terms of external, but how did you find your kind of inner allies? And
This is a bit easier because it's real people.
Yeah.
Whereas the other one, you got to like create them, or your allies. So this was a little, I mean, I haven't done a lot of it, but it was a bit easier.
And how did you, because I wasn't at the last few, but how did you find getting on with the ally piece? Because it can take some time. Did you manage to create any internal allies?
I created myself as one.
Yeah.
Well, that's the leader though, isn't it? Yeah. I did have some things written down, yeah, but I can't remember what they were.
Yeah. So just spending some time with that. And like I say, with all of this work, it's not about doing it all in 12 weeks. Like a lot of the time,
No,
kind of planting
really got to go back.
And realizing just that actually we do have access to a whole spectrum, you know, and actually we've often forgotten parts of ourselves along the way.
Yep.
Okay, cool. No, that's really helpful. What I will do is I will bring us back if that's all right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Right.
I had a session with my mentor as well today, and I mentioned Glennon Doyle to her.
Yeah.
And she's like, "Oh, I'm a huge fan of her. I want to do her training."
Oh, does she
And
have her
she'd
own
read
training? Does she have her own
book.
training?
Well, I haven't looked it up, but apparently.
Oh, interesting. I'm gonna have to look at that as well then.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Yeah, no, she's pretty awesome. I think yeah, I always resonate with her because she's just very very, I don't know what the word is, but she just says it how absolutely it is. You know, there's no holding back.
Well, it has helped me a bit because it's, you know, generally when you make decisions, I've been thinking, oh, what would my future self want? And now I'm thinking, no, what do I want now, as well as the future? And what's the best, not the right thing to do for me right now?
Yeah, I often say, what would Glennon do? What would Glennon do right now?
Yep.
How did you guys get on? Sam, Lauren, did you manage to interview one person or showcase one, or did you kind of more have a general conversation?
Yeah, more kind of general. I spoke about a couple and also spoke about how some people in my life that I could reach out to, I was saying, aren't actually here physically. Like they're like, most of the time we connect virtually because I've got like friends all over the world. So actually missing that, like kind of meeting in person and that kind of human connection is also really important.
Yeah.
So
I think someone said to me the other day, it's kind of just figuring out what you need, because actually there's this whole opportunity now in a digital world to redefine friendships, to redefine relationships. And it's about what gives you the energy, what lifts you up, because it might be that the digital version of a friendship like is perfect for you, but then you also might be something that needs the physical contact.
yeah.
So it's just leaning into the fact that we can redefine this. You know, it doesn't have to be traditional. And someone I'm working with at the moment said to me, or made me realize, a lot of my friends or crew members are people I work with through the well-being stuff, and actually a lot of my clients, because these you amazing humans, you know, are on the journey with me. So there was something that was like, well, that can't be a friendship. And it's like, well, yeah, like that's not right or wrong. That's an old belief around work and home has to be separate, you know, around like a belief from my parents. So it's so interesting that, yeah, we can define this, and it can be whatever we like. We don't have to put it in a certain box. And I think that was really interesting, because we've got that freedom now more than ever to redefine what that looks like.
Yeah.
Super interesting. Anything from you, Lauren, that you want to share?
No, I've got a lot of open spaces on my crew, so
Yeah. So do I at the moment. Don't worry, we can be in each other's, Lauren.
okay. Done.
What about, have you thought about, and has this, I guess this is probably the next bit that I'll encourage you to think about, but if you were to fill one of those spaces, you know, what would be important for you in someone you're looking to be in your front row, whether that's a romantic relationship or a friendship? Have you thought about that, or do you have an idea of what that might look like?
A good question to meditate over, I think.
Yeah. And I think sometimes looking at role models and mentors and like even actual kind of people we follow that are like in the public eye as well can be really quite a good way, because often we maybe don't have those people. This is what I struggled with. I didn't have those people around me to know what I was looking for. And like there's a quote, isn't it, like if you can't see it, you can't be it. So how do you know that it's doable and possible if like you don't see that in your circle? And that's where a really good thing to do is look at who you look up to and who your role models are and which amazing humans you're just like, oh my God, everything they say, like me and Glennon Doyle, you know, because actually that shifts kind of maybe our perspective of that, of opens our minds to these people are out there. Because often it's a closed-mindedness of just because they don't exist in our communities doesn't mean that these people aren't there. We haven't met them yet. Who do you look up to, Lauren? I'm gonna press you on that one. Anyone that you love reading books of or kind of listening to or with podcasts and things?
Jay Shetty.
Yeah.
He can be on my crew.
Yeah. We'll send him a personal invite. Yeah. Awesome. Okay. Fab. Anything you want to share, Carol, from our conversation? Carol, I think it's quite interesting what you were saying about how your view of this has changed over the years. If you can share a bit on that, I think that was quite interesting.
The view of my crew.
Yeah, because you said in your 20s, for example, like it was.
Yeah, my 20s, I didn't have a crew. I didn't know I needed a crew. I was more on living with someone, but on my own, because I worked so far away from home and I didn't have much money then. I remember having like £12 left at the end of each month, so there was no money for going out. So I didn't have a crew. I was self-sufficient. And then as you get older, your circle of friends or your people you meet gets bigger, and then you realize, yeah, you do need these people. And now it's finding out, you know, you've got the ones that stay, what role they have in your life. And it's interesting that people do come and go. And yeah, it's better to have a crew than not.
Yeah, but it does, the lesson in that is as you learn who you are, like there's an element of the fact that this stuff takes time. It's not kind of ready made as well, in that it gets easier as we kind of cement who we are in the world. You know, and that it would make sense, doesn't it, that this kind of is something that gets easier along with kind of our own journey around understanding who we are. Because for me, I spent a lot of my 20s trying to be who the world wanted me to be. So then it was kind of lost in the translation of, well, you know, like Lauren was saying, well, I'm the version of, I don't know who I am basically, but I kind of have been so focused on who you just get wrapped in a cycle of. Whereas actually when that's clear from your side, you can then start to actually pull in those friendships and relationships that matter and that will support you. So it kind of, it isn't a surprise that this bit isn't something we always kind of have nailed straight away. And, you know, there's something, I speak to a lot of people about this, there's something about people use, it feels like as a collective, the longer you've been friends, the more important the relationship is. I don't know if you guys find that, but sometimes people say like, oh, we've been friends for years, 20 years, 30 years. And that can be quite a hard thing to navigate, but it doesn't always mean that friendship is worth holding on to. But that can be a really hard thing to navigate, you know, when you're letting go of friendships, you know, people that you've known since childhood. But, you know, would they cheer you on? You know, would they be there cheering you on when you talk about something you've learned, you know, or would they kind of try hold you back? I think for me, that's the question here. You know, are they my cheerleader? Do they support me to be better? Yeah. And Sam, when do you feel like that started to shift for you in terms of, you said you've got some great people around you, but they're not all kind of physically. Do you feel like that's something that's happened gradually or kind of overnight?
I feel it's happened through experiences, so places I've been where I feel more me. So like I've been at a retreat and I've met someone that is just more connected into what I'm connected to when I'm probably in those places where I'm just being me, and there's more of a connection, if that makes sense.
It makes complete
sense. So then like, because a lot of my friends I've met that I'm really close to, I've met from traveling, from doing things that light me up. So there's been a connection through that. And then some of them, we've just built that connection, and we, do virtual calls quite regularly and stuff like that. So like one I was saying on the call with Lauren is we met 3 years ago at a retreat in Cambodia, and then we kind of kept in touch, and then we lost touch, and then we got back in touch again last year through COVID because we're doing online stuff together. And then we just have met every couple of weeks, and we're now like have just like the loveliest times, and we're like connecting, but I have never seen her again physically from that time. But so I think there's something in it amongst, like you were saying, maybe it's about having the balance of there's people that you can meet, and maybe it is more just a case that you see them online. Maybe we will meet again in person. We have spoke about it, but then there's other people that, or is it like trying to find that in person as well? What are the values that I'm looking for? Like, what is it? Thinking about when I leave conversations with her, I feel really excited and I feel like buzzing.
Yeah.
And
that's a really good sign. Encouraging you.
Yeah, it's that. How do I feel towards the end of these chats? And I always leave it feeling really inspired and motivated, and we just chat about different things that we want to do, and sometimes we'll sit and drink cacao together or have a dance together. It's we can just be really close, even if it's virtual.
Yeah.
So it's just happened over time, just different things I've went to, and I've just met like-minded people, and then some of them I've just been like, let's grow together kind of thing.
Have you, and is there anyone, because I sense that this has kind of been something that's happened over a period of time, and for me, but is there anyone that you, in order to let those friendships in, that you had to kind of let go of along the way, and how was that at the time?
I feel similar to what you've been saying around, I think for many years, trying to be something for someone else was very exhausting.
Yeah.
And I remember quite a few years ago being with a group of friends physically that I remembered time and time again leaving, being with them, feeling drained and feeling like just something wasn't right, or I just remember feeling like, is this it? Is this how I'm meant to feel after connection? And that was probably the first kind of time where I ever walked away. And I remember having no one, because that was all I knew.
That was a group of friends, yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, I remember coming home to my mum and I was like, I just can't do it anymore. I'm just constantly leaving drained. I'm constantly leaving feeling like I don't fit in. And I felt through time I was just getting smaller and smaller and kind of lost my identity. And I was like, I don't even know who I am anymore. And then from that, taking that step away, which was terrifying, because I was like, now I don't have any friends. But it opened a space to be like, what do I want? And then it's been over years of just like meeting different people. And then I've grown and evolved, and now at a place where I recognise because obviously going to Lisbon and stuff, I've met quite a lot of different characters. And if I get that feeling that it just doesn't, there's not a,
you have
a connection.
You have that kind of gut instinct, or like that kind of gut feel maybe about kind of what is and isn't in alignment. And this is all about feeling and being in alignment yourself, so that you know when it's something that is then for you or kind of not for you. And I think one thing I would say is, if it is people that, because it feels like a few of us are still in, well, me and Lauren are still in that place of like almost kind of feeling like you've got to let people go. I would always just say as well, you can love people from a distance. That's something I needed to hear, because I think the yes and the no and that was really hard for me as a people pleaser, which Lauren, I know you are too, to kind of cut people off. But I think it's not about cutting people off. It's about loving people from a distance, because actually family come into this too, don't they? Because actually our crew are often our family. And this is very hard with family, but we can love our family from a distance. We can control how their views, opinions and beliefs affect us. And that for me is quite powerful here, because it isn't about, are you in or are you out? It's about, I control how much I receive here, how much I put in and how much I take out, you know, and every person might have a different energy level of like a slightly different balance. But that for me is a really interesting point, because the family bit is a tricky one here as well. And that's an important kind of point to make. This does extend to our family too, you know. And I think it's just realizing that actually, if we're not putting those boundaries in place, that we are being affected, and that person or those people are shaping who we are in the world. And that's the cost, isn't it? What's the cost of not putting this boundary in place? You know, and that, as long as we're clear on that, I think it makes it easier to move forward. But yeah, it's super fascinating, this stuff, isn't it? Because it's a big part of the journey that I think people don't quite get to this bit, because it's a really isolating part, which is why we do this as a group. Because you're telling us, Sam, you know, the fact that you felt like that, and now you are over here, and it's starting to get easier. That's massive. The same as, oh yeah, I used to feel like that, but actually that's happened over time, and I feel really comfortable now. Like, that's really powerful, isn't it? You know, for us to hear that and see that. Awesome.
There's just one other.
Yeah, sorry, Sam, you go.
Just when you said about the family, like, I will say as well, though, it's been triggering being back at home sometimes. And like you say, it's like your family are your crew as well. And I love my mum to bits, but my God, like recently we've clashed, and there's been, you know, and it's like, it has been important to have those boundaries even in these times, to be like, what I'll tolerate and what you need space for. So yeah, it's not always easy, like.
No, it's not. And I think especially with family, one thing I would say is like, there's some, so with our friends, there's some of them can come on the journey with us and grow with us and evolve with us, but often the generational element of like our parents means that there's certain views and beliefs that are generational that just won't change. And I think if you realize that, then actually you're not trying to change that person. You're accepting that relationship is going to be that way, and that's then where you can move forward in it. Because I think as soon as you're trying to change it or affect it, that's when the energy, and it gets exhausting. But there's a real acceptance in, actually, that's what you learn, but actually I'm going to choose, you know, to move forward differently. And I think that for me with my family stuff was interesting, because I was trying to change it the whole time, and that's where it was getting exhausting. But an acceptance around, that's okay that you believe that, but actually I don't have to take that on as my own, was quite an important part. And I think for me, that's where this is interesting, because some people might want to come on the journey with you, but give them the chance. And I'll say that about my relationship too. You know, it was important for me to try and talk to him about what was important to me and bring him on that journey with me, you know, because then actually you look back and you don't feel like, you know, you've had any regrets or made any mistakes, you know. And that's an invitation we can offer, but we can't force someone to be ready, and people may never be ready, and that's okay, you know, but invite them, you know. And I think that's when I realized I wasn't actually inviting him for a lot of that process. But when I did, you know, it was then his choice whether he kind of wanted to move into that or not. And some people don't have the access for it either, or just can't meet you on that level, and that's okay. Awesome. Any other thoughts on that? We're going to spend the last 15 minutes just on life purpose and introducing it, because it's big. But any thoughts on this bit that we want to wrap up with? Because it'll take a bit of time to sink in, but anything that anyone wants to share?
I can see a change happening in my sister, because she lives on her own. She's 50 now, and I don't know what she's been thinking. She hasn't shared everything with me, but she has been sort of seeing a guy, but she won't tell my parents. She's told me not to tell them. And she's also joined Meetup, and she's looking for different ways of meeting people and bringing people into her life. So it's quite nice seeing it happen to others as well.
Yeah, and you might ask her how you can support her with that. There might be things that she wants to go to that she doesn't want to go to on her own. So you might be able to be her cheerleader in the sense of like being curious, but almost like, offering some support there in terms of like something she might want to do that you can then, go to with her for the first time. So again, it's nice to be on the other end of that when someone's going through a change to understand how we can be the cheerleader, right?
Yes.
Actually, we are the cheerleaders for a lot of people in our lives. We are the crew for a lot of people in our lives. How can we be true to ourselves and be the best version for them as well? Not putting our needs aside.
No.
But actually, it's important to kind of be able to mirror that back and also show up for them and push them on when they need it as well.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Okay. So life purpose, we're going to spend 2 or 3 weeks. It's pretty much till the 13th is going to be the last date. Is it the 13th? Tuesday the 13th? Tuesday the 14th is our last one. We're not going any closer to Christmas. So we've got 3 weeks left. So we're going to do 2 weeks on life purpose, and then we're going to do a wrap-up week. So life purpose is so interesting. I've had quite a few conversations with both Sam and Lauren actually about life purpose, their own kind of like journey in terms of personal development, and you, Carol, around kind of your interest in nutrition and things like that as well. So it's a really nice module because it kind of brings together everything we've learned and looks at how we're going to be that change in the world. But we can't do the kind of life purpose bit without understanding the who. And that's why the value stuff comes first, because we have to understand what we care about, what comes naturally to us, what we loved as a child, the bits of us that we've forgotten along the way, because actually all of that is part of our why. And often the Simon Sinek stuff that you probably all have seen, we skip that bit. People are like fascinated with like, I need to know my why in the world. But we are the why, right? Like we are the why, the authentic expression. But we've not looped back on ourselves, have we, often? So no wonder why we're looking for it externally. So it's within you. Your why is you on purpose. It's you in alignment with your values. It's you rocking it and being your leader within every single day, and it's actually always been there all along. But actually this bit allows us to get really clear about how that looks in relation to others. How do we show up day to day? What impression do we leave on people? So I was talking to Lauren, wasn't I, recently about you and your meditation journey. I was asking, well, what is it about Lauren? Like, if I have a session with you, like, how am I going to be changed at the end of that session? What is it that I'm going to take away? Because that's unique to you. I'm going to have a different experience having a meditation session with Lauren compared to Lizzie. And Sam, the work you do, the USP around like, why will someone work with you? And that clarity of approach. Carol, why would I come to you, and why would you support someone with a journey in terms of them and their nutrition? What's important about that for you? What's it about your lived experience? What's it about your personal meditation journey, Lauren, that was the light bulb moment for you? Because if we're not using that in our own life purpose, then actually the messaging gets lost there. And for me, this is super powerful. So we're going to be putting together like a life purpose statement draft. So it's basically, mine, I've got a few versions. My first ever version was, I am the lighthouse that guides you home. So it is, I am the metaphor, that, and then the last bit is the impact. So there's 2 bits to it. We explore the metaphor. So who am I being when I am on purpose? Who am I being when I'm doing my life purpose? So when I'm doing that meditation class, when I'm running that coaching session for women, who am I being, and what's that metaphor? What's that energy? And what's the impact? What's the change that I'm then bringing about? So you can see it's being and then it's action. So that's the coactive model, being, doing. So that's what you'll go on and explore in the next kind of week, where you'll be putting together these statements, and they're beautiful, and they're all draft versions, and you'll have to play around with all the words. But when you actually put that statement together, you'll realize that's it, because the words will just sound right. And you'll be like, yes, you know, that's it. And this is a gift to you because you use this then every single day. You know, that drives you forward. But it's a really nice way of bringing together all of this into kind of the roadmap of how you move forward as well. And what's really nice here is we've all got this kind of feeling of something that we're starting to dive into and explore. Donna's looking, she's not here, but she's looking for a new job. So you can see how this is an amazing opportunity for someone looking for a new role, because you get to really look at that job search in a completely different way, like in alignment with your truth, rather than who you feel like you should be, right? You know, and for me, this is a really interesting part of it. Has anyone done much work on life purpose before, or on your why, or read any of those kind of books, or have anything you guys want to share?
No.
I feel like I've overwhelmed you. What about you, Sam? Because you're doing it, like you're doing, well, you're all doing it. I always say that. Like, I pulled a card before and it was, you're already doing it. You are already doing it, all of you. But Sam, talk to me about like how you started running your group sessions around the embodiment coaching and stuff. Because like, I know you need action of me pushing you on, and that's why you liked me, because you felt the masculine energy of me and you were like, I need that. But this is what I mean. Like, talk to me about how that came about. How did you get clear about that life purpose? How did it start to turn into action?
I feel it was always a part of my journey. So I would go through a particular phase of my journey, and then from the experience and the growth I had from that, then led on to, I would love to share this with other women. So like the menstrual cycle course was probably that was the first course I did last year. And that came from my journey with my hormonal imbalance, and then being able to reverse it naturally, and then having this desire to like share it with other women. And then I decided to create a course, and then just found women that were looking for that particular thing. So I think it's always been my journey, my story that's led on to what I've experienced and what I've got through. Yeah. So then that becomes the why, I guess, as well.
Absolutely.
And then
they're so linked, aren't they?
Yeah. So then I think from that,
when we try and separate them, like I always say, and I know I shouldn't say this because I work a lot with the NHS, but it seems crazy to me that we can't talk about our lived experience when we're supporting someone, like in a clinical sense. Like, you can't disclose like anything. So I suffered for OCD for 5 years, you know, very, very extreme case. But I can't, when I'm talking about managing a mind or reframing a negative thought, I can't say, so I used to really struggle with X or whatever. Like, you can't disclose. But for me, that's the reason you do the work you do, right? Like, so I don't understand that. And I know there's elements that come with that. There's sensitivities, but your lived experience is why you do what you do, and you have to use that and tell your story. And I think one thing I do with this work as well is start to get a bit clear on what your story is, and why nutrition, Carol. Like, what is it about you and your journey with nutrition? What is that light bulb moment, Lauren, that you learned with meditation that you were like, wow, this is life changing? Like, reconnect with that moment, because that there's so much power there, but we often, I don't know, maybe don't spend enough time with that moment, or we don't feel like we can make it about us, maybe. I don't know, maybe there's a bit of, oh, this isn't about me, you know, maybe there's a bit of imposter syndrome there. But I'd encourage you to spend a bit of time with that, because that's the connection to others. That's the difference that you'll then make in the world.
I guess it is like, what's your challenge? What was been challenging in life, and then what got you through it, and that becomes the fuel of, I had this, and then I used this to help me, and I feel completely changed by it. And then those people will come that resonate with your story if they've gone through a similar experience, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I think that gives you a little bit of food for thought, but you can see why we leave that till the end, because without the other bits of the jigsaw, it's very hard to understand. Like, you guys have come to this course with an idea of that, but you you kind of have been able to cement some of that understanding to realize, yeah, I know that this, where I'm headed is the right direction. And funnily, this course either shows people what they need to be doing, gives them an idea of the roadmap of like moving from something to something else. Or I had a few people in the NHS in the last course that said, oh my God, now I realize, now I'm so clear about why I'm doing what I'm doing. Because they were like, it makes sense, because it just reaffirmed everything that they knew. So it's really nice. It's not always about, oh my God, I'm not in the right place, I need to be over there. It's like, I'm exactly where I need to be. I just didn't realize, because subconsciously I've been doing it all along. So it's not always about doing something new. It's about realizing actually you're kind of where you're meant to be at any point in time. So I thought that was a really nice reflection as well, because it was kind of a really different experience that a few people had, being naturally people pleasers, naturally supporting others, that ended up in that kind of caretaking role that was naturally very, very fitting for them as well. So yeah, lots to look forward to that. So we're going to have a go at our draft statements next week, play around with the metaphors a bit, because the metaphors can be quite hard for people. Like, we don't really spend much time with metaphors, since primary school. So it can be really quite tricky, but there's a lot of power in embodying, Sam, you do a lot in this area around embodying the energy of why, what does that session with Lauren feel like compared to a session with someone else? And use something like water. Like, water has so many different states, some that are fast, slow, cold, hot, warm, all these different elements that we can use as a metaphor to help us show up in that role and keep us doing it our way and doing it out. Yeah, I love that. I love it. It's about doing it our way, not being like other people that have come before us. It's about doing it our way.
So you are the stone that's creating the ripples in our lives.
That's a lovely one, isn't it? See, you're going to be good at this, Carol.
That just came from
That just came on the top of your head. That's what I mean. But these are so beautiful.
When you said water,
yeah, they're so the metaphors are beautiful, and these statements will be with you. And I will say that they will change as you change. So that statement will grow with you. So like 2 years on, it might be completely different, because actually this statement has to be moving you forward towards who you're becoming. And actually, that's why it will naturally just change with you as you evolve. But this is a great affirmation. It can be used as it's a kind of a really great tool to help you show up. And I often say with this as well, some people say, who am I to tell my story? Who am I to do this work from my place of lived experience? And I always say, who are you not to? Like, who are you not to share like this with the world? And this is about me and us and each other, pushing each other on and being this change, because who are we not to?
Well, I've made one change already. Last Friday, I had a chat with my boss, and as of 1st of January, I'm cutting down to 4 days a week.
Oh, well done.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And how did that conversation go? Was it
well, he knew that was what I wanted to do, and he was just waiting for me really to say it. He's just giving me the space, and I think he's been waiting for about 18 months for me to actually say it.
Space to start to explore this new journey, and really map it out, and give yourself some time to understand what this could look like.
It's the time, because I can't make time. The things I do in the evening, I've thought about, and I don't want to give them up. So yeah, I've given up a day's work instead.
Well done. Amazing. Yeah. Fantastic. Okay, I'm going to let you all go, because I'm just aware of your time. But thank you so much for being here, sharing so openly, and hearing me rabbit on. Can tell this is one of my favorite weeks. Looking forward to seeing you all next week, where we'll start some drafts. I think I've asked for you guys to come along with 3 draft versions, which will then pull apart through about, and actually kind of get some feedback on. Because what's really nice about this bit as well is you're mirrors for each other. So Sam might say to Lauren, oh, I don't know if it feels like, I feel like this with you, or I feel like it might be this. And they'll give you ideas. And this is really nice, because actually sometimes we don't see ourselves how we're actually being received in terms of that energy. So I think it's really nice to have the mirror from others to kind of, we've had so many people give metaphors that people have been like, yeah, that's it. you know, and they've just not been able to come up with that themselves. So it's a really nice chance to use each other in this process as well, and use me. So yeah, enjoy.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And have a great week, everyone. And I look forward to seeing you again.
Thank you.
I'm around on Slack. Please use me. Now I'm back. I missed you all. It was hard staying away. Lizzie had to literally tell me off because I told her, like, I'm not coming to these because I need to fully allow her to, like, you know, have her space to kind of guide it. But it was really hard for me. I was literally sitting there just looking at the clock. So yeah, have a great week, everyone, and I'll see you again next Monday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.